The ICU doors slid open, and everything stopped. Not the machines, not the monitors. Those kept humming, steady, indifferent. It was the people, the nurses, the air. Even my own breath felt like it hit a wall. Because the patient on the bed was my mother. Have you ever walked into a room you weren't supposed to exist in? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I tightened my grip on the clipboard, forcing my face into something neutral, professional, controlled. That's what they train you for. Not this. Never this. Dr. Kaur? One of the nurses prompted softly. I nodded once, stepped forward. Naira Kaur, 54. Severe respiratory distress. Oxygen levels unstable. I read the chart like it belonged to a stranger, like the name didn't echo in my head. But then she looked at me, really looked, and her hand tightened around the bed rail so suddenly it made a sharp metallic sound. Her fingers trembled like she'd touched something electric. Her lips parted, but nothing came out at first. Recognition. Slow, horrified recognition. For 4 years, this woman told everyone I had disappeared into failure. Dropped out, burned out, couldn't handle the pressure. And now? I was standing over her in a white coat, responsible for keeping her alive. You weren't supposed to be here, she finally whispered, her voice thin, almost swallowed by the oxygen mask. Not supposed to be here. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not even shock, just clarity. I adjusted the chart slightly and spoke the way I would to any patient. I never left. The nurse beside me glanced between us, confused. She didn't understand why the room suddenly felt smaller, heavier. Good. She wasn't supposed to. I started listing vitals, treatment options, next steps. My voice steady, measured, untouched. Years of training wrapped around me like armor. But inside, every second rewound, every unanswered call, every message ignored. Every moment I realized my own family believed I had failed. And now the woman who built that lie couldn't even look me in the eye. Tell me something. What would you do if the person who erased you suddenly needed you to survive? Because I didn't have the option to walk away. Not here, not now. As I flipped the page on her chart, preparing to continue, she grabbed the rail harder, her knuckles turning pale, and whispered something that made my chest tighten for the first time in years. And I realized this wasn't just going to be a medical case. This was unfinished. What kind of lie erases you while you're still alive? 4 years ago, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Top of my class. Exhausted, sure, but focused. Certain. The kind of certainty Jige built over years of choosing the harder path every single time. And I remember the day GDK started to shift. I walked into our dining room, holding my residency letter, my hands shaking, but not from fear, from relief, pride, excitement. I got it, I said. My mother didn't even look up right away. Naira Kaur K was always like that, timing her reactions, controlling the moment. When she finally lifted her eyes, they weren't warm, they were calculating. Which hospital? I told her. There was a pause. 2GGK. That one, she said, her tone flattening. It's not exactly prestigious. That should have been my first warning, but I brushed it off. Tried GDK. Rankings, specialization, opportunities. Every GK I had worked for. She smiled, slightly. Not proud, not impressed. GDK days. It got worse. Subtle at first. Comments dropped casually in front of relatives. Seraphine's been under a lot of pressure. She's not handling GDK as well as we hoped. At first, I thought she was worried about me. Looking back, she was building something. The GDK before I left, it finally snapped. "You're making a mistake," she told me, standing in the doorway of my room like she owned the decision. "That hospital will reflect poorly on this family." "This isn't about the family," I said. "It's my career." Her expression hardened. "Everything you do reflects on us." That was the line, the boundary. So I left. No dramatic goodbye, no apology, just a suitcase, a one-way ticket, and the belief that distance would cool things down. And at first, I tried. I called, no answer. I texted, no reply. I sent updates, photos, milestones, small wins. Nothing. Days turned into weeks, then weeks into something colder. Silence. Until one message slipped through from a cousin I barely spoke to. "Hey, I heard you dropped out. Are you okay?" I remember staring at my phone, rereading it over and over like it might change. Dropped out? I laughed at first, actually laughed. Then I opened social media, scrolled, and there it was. A post from my mother, clean, polished, carefully worded. "Some children choose paths we can't support. As parents, we can only hope they find their way again." No name, but everyone knew who she meant. And just like that, my entire life had been rewritten. One lie doesn't just spread. It settles. It roots itself. And if you don't rip it out immediately, it becomes truth to everyone else. I tried. That's the part no one ever sees. I didn't just disappear quietly. I called my mother again, and again, straight to voicemail. I texted her, long messages at first, then shorter ones. Then just, "Can we talk?" Nothing. So I reached out to other people, aunts, uncles, family friends. At first, they responded, carefully, politely. "Take your time, Seraphine. Your mother told us you've been struggling. We're here when you're ready to come back." Come back? I was still in residency, still working 14-hour shifts, still passing every evaluation. But none of that mattered, because she had spoken first, and louder. You ever notice how people don't actually verify things when the story sounds believable? Burnout. Pressure. Couldn't handle it. It fit just enough to be accepted. Eventually, the responses slowed. Then they stopped. Invitations disappeared. Holidays came and went like normal days. Photos got posted, smiling faces, full tables, my seat quietly erased. Even my father. He called a few times early on, short conversations, careful words. Then one day he said, "Maybe it's best to give your mother space right now." And that was it. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't confusion. This was alignment. So I made a decision. I stopped defending myself. Not because I agreed, but because I realized something dangerous. No one was listening. So instead, I worked, harder than before. If they believed I failed, then fine. I would succeed where it actually mattered. Residency consumed everything. Sleep became optional. Emotions, irrelevant. And somehow, I thrived. Evaluation after evaluation, top marks, recognition, responsibility, trust. That's where I met Calum Vire. He didn't know anything about my family, didn't ask at first. Just saw me as I was, focused, relentless, unshakable. We got married in a quiet civil ceremony. No guests, no family. Just 2 signatures and a promise that didn't need witnesses. I didn't tell anyone. There was no one left to tell. And then, months later, I heard the full version of the story my mother had created. Not just that I dropped out, but that I couldn't handle it, that I broke under pressure. I remember sitting in the hospital break room when I heard that, and thinking, if they could see me now. Before I could finish that thought, a voice pulled me back to the present. "Doctor, the patient's family is on the way." I froze, just for a second, because I knew exactly who that meant. The same people who believed I was gone. About to walk into a room where I was very, very real. Have you ever watched a lie collapse in real time? It doesn't shatter all at once. It cracks, quietly, unevenly, until suddenly there's nowhere left for it to hide. I kept my focus on the monitors. Vitals first, always vitals. Oxygen saturation stabilizing. Heart rate still elevated but manageable. I spoke in calm, measured tones, giving instructions, adjusting treatment, doing exactly what I was trained to do. Because if I stopped, if I felt anything, I might lose control of the only thing keeping this situation contained. My mother didn't speak. Not at first. But I could feel her watching me. Every movement, every word, every decision. Like she was trying to reconcile 2 versions of reality that refused to fit together. The failure she described, and the doctor standing in front of her. "Doctor." Her voice was weaker now, hesitant. I didn't turn immediately. "Let's keep communication focused on your breathing," I said, clinical, distant. "You need to conserve energy. Professional, clean, impersonal." It was the only way I could do this. Then the door opened. Footsteps, multiple. Voices layered with urgency, concern, confusion. Family. I didn't need to look to know who they were. I recognized the rhythms of their voices instantly. People I hadn't heard in 4 years, now suddenly loud again, filling the same space I stood in. "What happened? Is she okay? Where's the doctor?" I turned, and for a moment, no one recognized me. Why would they? In their version of my life, I had already disappeared. Then one of them, my aunt, Lyris, squinted slightly. Her eyes narrowed. "Seraphine?" There it was, that shift, that ripple moving through the room as recognition caught up with reality. Every gaze snapped toward me. Confusion first, then disbelief. Then something sharper. "I thought you," someone started. "Weren't you," another added, trailing off. I didn't react, didn't explain, didn't defend. I simply turned back to the chart and continued speaking. "Patient is responding to treatment. GK will monitor oxygen levels over the next few hours and—" "Wait," Lyris GK interrupted, her voice tighter now. "Seraphine, what is going on? I thought you left school." There it was, out in the open. The lie, spoken casually, like it had always been true. I finally looked up. Not at her, at all of them. Faces I used to know, now strangers built on someone else's story. Then slowly, I shifted my gaze, GK, to my mother. Her hand tightened around the rail again, trembling harder now, her eyes fixed anywhere but me. And for the first time since I walked into that room, I stopped being just the doctor. You should ask my mother. Silence. Heavy, immediate, unavoidable. Because now, silence like that doesn't feel empty. It feels heavy, pressed, like the air itself is waiting. Every eye in the room shifted to my mother, Naira Kaur, who had controlled every version of this story for 4 years, now lay there, fragile, exposed, and completely out of time. Well? My Aunt Lyris pressed, her voice sharper now. Naira, what is she talking about? My mother didn't answer immediately. Her fingers GK time at bed rail again. But this calculation, the same instinct she always had. GK, she... Naira started, her voice thin. She left. She made her choices. It almost worked. Almost. Until I spoke. Calm. Clear. Precise. I completed my residency at Halcyon Medical Centre, I said. Graduated with distinction. GK have been practicing for over a year. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Truth doesn't need volume when it has evidence. One of my cousins, already halfway through disbelief, pulled out GK. I watched their expression change in real time as they searched. Seconds later, "It's all here," they said quietly. "Her name, her profile, she's..." "A doctor," someone else finished. And just like that, the structure my mother built collapsed. Not dramatically, not loudly, but completely. Questions came fast after that. Why would you say she dropped out? Why didn't you tell us the truth? Do you realise what this looks like? Naira didn't have answers that could survive scrutiny, because there weren't any. Only control, image, and a decision she thought would never be challenged. Then she looked me, really looked this time, and asked the one question that almost sounded like it mattered. Why didn't you fix it? I held her gaze. I tried, I said. You made sure one listened. That was it. No shouting, no breakdown, no scene. Just truth, placed exactly where it belonged. The aftermath didn't explode. It unravelled. Over the next few days, messages started coming in. Relatives, apologies, explanations that felt more like self-defense than regret. I didn't know. We thought. You have to understand. I understood. They believed the version that was across from me, quieter than I'd ever see him. I had doubts, he admitted. But your mother was convincing. I nodded. That was consequence. Not dramatic punishment, but quiet, irreversible shifts. Trust doesn't come back the same way it leaves. At the hospital, I requested reassignment after my mother stabilised. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Professional boundaries are still boundaries. Weeks later, I stepped out of the hospital after a long shift. Calum was waiting, leaning against the car, exactly where he said he'd be. consistent, steady, real. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened it. One message from her. I was wrong. I read it once, then again. No excuses, no justifications, just that. And for a moment, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, completion. I locked my phone and slipped it back into my pocket. No reply. No need. Because for the first time in 4 years, there was nothing left to prove. I walked forward, and I didn't look back.